if you make something way too complicated and you don't set kind of the goals and rules around it, people go, it's too hard. So it's more taking it back to basic.
So my guest today holds a Bachelor of Business and Accounting, is a certified practicing accountant, sits on the Xero Advisory Council, is a CPA Australia Committee member, the co-host of the Numbers Game podcast, owner of Future Advisory, married, property owner, Jason Robinson. Welcome to the potty.
Mate, great to be here. I've been looking forward to this ever since you gave me the call up. So yeah, bring it on.
Mate, here a little bit of congratulations are in order for you. Now mistake me if I'm not wrong here. You did Hydrox?
Hyrox, yeah.
You did Hyrox, which is kind of CrossFit Games, what it's developed into, just a sort of offshoot, similar thing.
Yep, close.
And then you went from that into the Gold Coast Marathon last weekend.
Yep, a lot of people told me I was an idiot, but I just thought, why not give it a crack? Just, I couldn't pick the dates. So I had to come back for Gold Coast for redemption. Hyrox kind of popped up in the calendar because I just do a little bit of training at BFT, which is behind where I live. And they had the Hyrox coming up. One of my clients, Bianca, was messaging going, oh, mate, you'd love Hyrox. I reckon it's like got your brain figured out, like that challenge where there's a bit of running and a bit of like sled pushing, rowing, skiing, farmer's carry, lunges, wall balls. And it was kind of crazy enough to go, you know what? I'd love to have a crack at that.
Yeah.
Just happened to be the week before the Gold Coast Marathon. So my running coach was like, no. My wife was like, no. So the more people that said no, I'm like, I am doing this. So yeah, look, to be honest though, it was probably a bit rough on the body, but got through it and got what I wanted. The Gold Coast Marathon was purely just last year I wanted a sub 4 and the day before I was walking my wife to her half marathon. Mm-hmm. And I rolled my ankle, like walking to, it was just a little off the edge of the gutter.
Yeah.
And it was just typical of me. I'm left-handed. I've got 2 left feet. It's just how it usually rolls God, I can't believe I did that. And they had to happen a few times where they're just the kings of puns at Future Advisory. So, and then the next day, left ankle was swollen. I had the vapor flies on, I reckon. I tied them up too tight. And it was in my head for the first 21K, I needed to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
My foot was swelling up, but I wanted the sub 4. So it was all this battle, the mental battle, which you'd know about being on long runs. And then halfway I went, fuck this. Like, went to the bathroom. But undoing the shoe was like another battle. I'm like, I can do it. Got to the 31 mark, which is up the Gold Coast Highway, this like slight incline for the next 2K. And
slight. I mean, your beachfront slight incline.
Slight incline. No,
0.1%.
It's off the beach. This one. It's up the not Gold Coast Highway. Then whatever the other road is. The one out there, where the bridge is, just down the road there.
Oh, Sunday Bridge.
Coming up that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Heading north. So that was just this brutal. And the sun had come out. There was a headwind, so every excuse in the book to go. I'm still tracking for sub 4. So I'm like, I've got to keep going. And where it broke me was my business partner. He's going for a sub 3-hour marathon. Yep. So this is how I got into running. My business partner he's ran almost every day. Well, he did run every day for 1,300 days. So
1,300 days, like that's
4 years nearly, or a bit over 3, 6, 9, 12. Yeah, over 4 years now. So we started running as I challenged him to do 20 days of running when we both got pretty in a bad place after COVID, when we were doing a business separation. But anyway, so I'm running up the Gold Coast of that road, and I'm at the 31K mark, and I look to the other side of the road, and there's my business partner flying past the 41 kilometre mark. Yeah. He's about to finish, and then I just went, oh man, this is bullshit. I just got in my head. So undid the shoelace, let the ankle swell up, trotted the rest, and finished in 4:02. So I was just like, I knew I had to come back this year. So that was last year. That was last year's 4:02, which is why it was just like so important to come back and just prove that I had the sub 4 in me at Gold Coast. But in the meantime, we went to London and I did 3:46 in London 2 months ago. So all good, got it done. But now it's like, you know when you get a little bit better at something, if you're wired that way, you just want to kind of keep getting better. So now Chicago's in 12 weeks. Yeah. And I'm kind of going, can I get 3:30? Like if I put in the work, shed a couple of kilos, because Hyrox and marathon training, I was just eating. And, a couple of beers on the weekend doesn't help when you do a 30K run on a Saturday and a high rocks training on a Sunday, then think, oh, I can have a couple of beers. So
12 beers on a Sunday,
I reckon
let's see if we can undo all the hard work.
Yeah, I reckon the next 12 weeks, the knuckle down and try and get the body right and the head right and fitness and everything for Chicago in 12 weeks. So if I can do 3:30 in Chicago, I'll be pretty stoked.
Yeah, it's funny you say about the mental games that go on. So with any endurance sport, like obviously you've got to put in the work, but I always had this thing when I was training that that your head gives up long before your body. Mm-hmm. So, and you know, I'm cut from a special cut of crazy.
100%.
So my thing in my head was, unless you have passed out, like collapsed, there's always more in the tank. And that's what I did. Like I went as hard as I could for as long as I could, and I never managed the collapse, which meant I probably left some out there. But when you're talking about going to the toilet, as anybody who knows me knows, if there's two things that I like, or three things I like a lot in this world, it's drinking coffee, overhydrating, and then going to the toilet too much. So what had happened in races, particularly in half Ironmans, was I would have enough caffeine to kill a small horse. So I would spend the entire run like busting for a pee. Yeah. And the argument I'd have in my head, like I'd like literally be arguing with myself. I'm like, well, you're not stopping, so you either pee yourself or just stop this carry on. And it was funny, I never actually needed to pee. Like it always went away.
I've got to get there because I went to the bathroom twice on the weekend. Still got my 356, but like even then I'm like, don't go to the bathroom the second time. And I'm like, nah, you've got more in the legs. Because again, I was the same. I'm like, I wasn't out there to kill myself this time off the back of high rocks. It was just survival, sub 4. Yeah. And on the second bathroom break, I was like, mate, you've been to the bathroom twice in less than 21 Ks. Like, what are you doing? And yeah, the head game just like absolutely just, it's brutal. But the seeing people collapse though, like that for me then also plays on my head game because at the 32K mark, Sunday just gone, girl collapsed in front of me, smashed her knees, blood everywhere, and somebody's kind of taken off to the side. And as I'm looking up the road, up that slight incline, there was people just wobbly legs dropping left and right. It got quite hot out there towards the back end. And it was like, without the preparation, people who didn't prepare, didn't hydrate, didn't carb load for the few days before and do all those extra steps that are required rather than just the running. You can put all the running in, but if you don't have the nutrition or the hydration, things can go wrong on game day. And I think as well, when you cross the line on game day, it's very different to training. I think training can only prepare you for so much, but having experience on game day, you got to get a few of those in the belt to understand the nerves, the hydration stations, the different weather conditions. So and then last year I saw 2 people die, which was horrible. Like, well, one confirmed definitely did. The other one, I can't find an article that confirms whether he passed away or not. It was a 28-year-old guy. I had to pass him twice because I ran past once and then the loop back around at the 35K mark and he was on the ground, the silver blanket, the drip in the arm, eyes rolling in the back of his head. And we found an article afterwards that he ended up in a coma in hospital and then have never found whether he came out or not. And then there was a 30-year-old French national that had a heart attack and died crossing the finish line while his girlfriend filmed him crossing the line. And you hear and see those things, and I'm a weekend warrior. Like I'm not, I'm working hard running a business, I'd probably equally drink as much caffeine as you do and then everything else on the weekend, having drinks and going out with mates. And I got in my head going, why isn't that me? Like what am I doing different to that 30-year-old fit looking bloke that just had a heart attack or the 28-year-old guy who carked it on the road, at the 35K mark? And then I got in my head going, do I need to back off?
Oh, maybe it could be you.
So, but I think also you can't necessarily think about that. Otherwise, I mean, I could have died crossing the road coming here to record the podcast.
So your pain is a funny thing and your mind's a funny thing. So when this is my take on it, when you're in a lot of pain, exercise-induced pain, your mind will grab at anything, any legitimate reason that will make you slow down. So whether it's, I've got to stop because I need to go to the toilet. I'm about to die. Do you know what it is? So your mind will do anything to try and get you to ease off. And, obviously I was doing pro sport, so pro sport is actually inherently reasonably unhealthy. Like you can have too much of a good thing, and that's what pro sport is. So it was all about pushing the boundaries. In triathlon as well, there with reasonable frequency are people who die, and they often die in the swim, so they have heart attacks in the swims, and then no one notices till it's too late.
Shit.
I don't know why it happens. I think some people have underlying health issues.
Yeah.
And then when you're looking at the back end of marathons. If you're 4 hours is a long time to exercise. And if you have a look at the glycogen, so sugar that you have available in your body, you have somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour and a half's worth of glycogen in there. And once you spend that, it's gone. So that's why if you're going to exercise for 4 hours, that's why nutrition's so important, but also pacing. So if you training and working out is all in zones. Yeah. So at about 80% is your long, slow and steady, kind of your marathon pace. And then if you're going up to 85 to 90%, that's more kind of we'll call it your 10K pace for the purpose of this. But the thing is, if you jump up into your 10K pace, your glycogen burning will jump up with it. And then when you slow back down, your glycogen burning still stays up there. It's almost like you've released a dam wall.
Yeah.
So it's really important with taking in carbs, so sugars, and you've got to train your stomach how to do that. So part of what we do training with triathlon is we train the nutrition as well, because not only so your gut can handle it, because there's a lot of unscheduled toilet stops in those sort of races. But also the more you do it, the better your body gets at absorbing it, so you can absorb more carbs per hour.
Yeah.
But the other thing with the hydration, and this is really important, people don't realise it. You'll have this is turning into a sport podcast, but you'll have a sweat rate, right? So if you weigh yourself immediately before a run, and then you run for an hour and say you do it at race pace, and then you weigh yourself afterwards, well, 1 kilo equals 1 litre of water. So that's how you can work out what your fluid loss is. And for a lot of people, like if I'm working hard in like 24-degree heat, which was what you guys were in, I lose 2 litres of water an hour. Now, you get somewhere above a 2 to 4% hydration loss, and you will start to get this massive dip in performance. But the other thing that happens is your blood gets thick, so your heart's having to work harder. And people get under all of this pressure, that their body gets under all of this pressure that they're not accustomed to. And you can end up in trouble if you don't do it right. And when you see people getting those wobbles, and it's ugly to watch.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, but it is often either a hydration issue, so they're incredibly dehydrated, and you can die from dehydration. Or the other one is your what's the word for it? Your hypoglycemia.
Yeah.
You've run out of sugars.
Yeah.
And sugar's the big bad beast in the nutrition world at the moment. But we run off it, right? Your brain, the fuel it uses is sugars.
Yeah.
And you've got no sugars, your brain stops working effectively. And the rest of the things in your body. And then you've got electrolyte loss as well, and a lot of the critical functions are based on your electrolytes. But people lose electrolytes at all different rates, and what you're losing changes. So for someone like me, although I drop a heap of fluid, I actually don't drop that much electrolyte. And then I'm going to stop talking about this in a sec. But this just...
It's interesting. But it's you get into that. Like if you're going to do it properly, this is the stuff you need to learn. Like if otherwise, this is where you can go out and make mistakes and get seriously injured, or, go the full extreme. So I think it's important to know this stuff if you are going to do it. There are a lot of parameters that you need to explore. So
another thing, people, I promise to the people who are listening, this is the last I'll talk about this. But another thing that people don't realise is the same pathway in your body that absorbs sugar, the same pathway absorbs salt. So if you're taking on too many electrolytes, you stop your ability for your body to absorb enough carbs. So most people, I would contend, have too many electrolytes.
Yeah.
So, when I'm in for triathlon, we did a whole heap of testing around this. It's the only way you can do it. Anyway, congratulations, sir. You made it. You didn't die. You only had 2 P stops.
Yep. Happy days.
Yeah, maybe for Chicago, no P stops. We might do a 3:30.
I think that's the goal. It's get that bit right and have an extra couple of minutes up my sleeve. And my business partner said he'd pulled out of the Gold Coast Marathon because of a sore knee, but entered himself into the 10K, and he came 9th for his age group in the 10K. So we ran it in 39 minutes.
Yeah, nice.
Just
what age group is he?
35, 39.
Yeah.
So he was, I think he's that white line fever as well. He was like, I'm going to save my knee. And then went out there and came 9th for his age group at, 3-minute 40, 3-minute 50Ks or whatever it ends up being. So I knew he wasn't going to be able to pull himself back. He's on that other end of the spectrum of, 1,300 days straight. Lost 17 kilos since we started that challenge, 3, 4, whatever many years ago. But it's funny to think he had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old when that challenge started. And all those little girls know now. We're out for dinner with them last night. They're beautiful girls. They love my wife. All they know is that Dad runs every day. And that's the influence that he's had on them, that now they want to go out running with Dad. They, want to go ride their bikes while Dad's running. And rather than the guy, my business partner that I've worked with for 22 years, he was my crew trainer at McDonald's when I was 14 and he was 15. Like, that's how crazy our relationship is.
Yeah.
He's my business partner at Future Advisory. And so to work together for 22 years, but then to recognise we were both in a bad place during COVID and a business separation, we were called RBK Advisory, and just the 4 partners went separate ways. So Greg and I peeled off, and the other 2 guys peeled off, and we had Shelley, who was in Perth, but she's since exited the business to focus on, her life and life over in Perth with her family, which is great for her. But through that, Greg, you're drinking at night time. We weren't leaving the house because of COVID, and, down in Melbourne anyway, when we were locked up for 2 years. And I said to Greg, I'm like, mate, we've got to snap out of this. Let's just do 20 minutes a day for 20 days, form a new habit, break the bad cycles we were doing. And I think I dropped 3 or 4 kilos at the time, and he dropped 5 or 6, and went from, he couldn't do 3K. Like he did a really slow 3K in 20 minutes. And by the 20th day, he was back to running 10K. Like, muscle memory snapped in. And then I got a text like day 30, because at day 20 I stopped. I think gyms reopened. I was like, yeah, cool, I don't need this streak. I'll do the mixture that suits me. And I got a text like day 30 just saying day 30 tick. And I was like, oh, mate, you kept on going. He's like, yeah, he's like, thought I'd better stick on a good thing. And then it was day 50 tick. And I was like, phew, okay. And then when he got to day 100, another mate went over to his house with like a ribbon and some candles on a cake. So, mate, 100 days running, like, this is awesome. And I called him up. I said, oh, look, 100 days is cool, but I reckon 365 days, 1 year, that's cool. I reckon he's got that brain that if you put an idea in there, so he's like, all right, far out, bloody hell. And then before he got to 365, I was like, that's nothing. 500 is a pretty cool number. And it just kind of kept going until it got to 1,000. Now he's just, he doesn't need anyone kind of pinging the motivation. But yeah, for him, the sub 3 goal for Chicago now is get the knee right, get to Chicago and do a sub 3 so we can go and do the global majors. He can qualify for, New York, Boston. Well, Boston's probably a bit harder. Berlin, Tokyo. They're the 4 we've got left after Chicago. And yeah, we'll see how we go. But kind of adds a bit of fun. Like, between running the business and doing everything we do at Future, to have that as an external factor, which also gives a bit of good influence. Like, we've got a team of 28 that now more of them are getting into running. Greg's got a couple that are into the local park runs. They've jumped on Strava. They like our runs and stuff, and we kind of get around each other. And I think as a positive environment, when you're looking to build a great team culture, or, you can have the bosses that want to go out and, get pissed at lunch, during the week, or you got the guys that are going, shit, can I sneak a run on my lunch break? Or, did I get my run done before work, or should I go after? And so it's just a different mindset and a different attitude across the team as well, that it becomes trying to build a high performing team at work by then showing that we do the extra stuff outside of work to add a bit of performance to our mindset and our physical health as well.
Definitely. And I think people, if you want to lead, you've really got to lead by example. You know, it's like I haven't got kids, but so I hear, you know, they don't listen to what you say. They look at what you do, and that's what they're emulating. Yeah. And I certainly see it with the crew in here as Aaron and I have our various ups and downs of life. The crew has the ups and downs as well. Like, you've got to, I think, as a business owner or as a parent, you've kind of got a responsibility. You've got to show up every day. You've got to show up, do the right thing. What I really like about that story is, and I was talking with one of our guys in here, Lucas, who he could do with a little bit of exercise. Let's just say that, just a little bit less spoon, a little bit more joggers. But no, he was saying the other day, he's like, I went out and exercised for 2 hours today, and I was like, which is great, but I'm like, he would be far better off rather than doing 2 hours one day, feeling really sore and not able to do anything. Just do 20 minutes or half an hour a day, but do it every day.
Yeah.
And do the same amount of time, but do it over a whole week. And that's what changes things. And I know with, like when I've got to establish new habits, what I do is I attach them to something that I always do.
Habit stacking.
Yeah. So like I floss my teeth every day. Yeah, that's right. I'm that guy.
Wow.
But I just attach it. I don't brush my teeth until I floss my teeth, and I do it every day. And when I was doing triathlon, I was super disciplined because, like, you don't feel like training all the time. In fact, I'd say 9 times out of 10, you wake up and you're just like, oh, not again. But I had a routine where I got up, I had my coffee, I meditated, I had my breakfast, and then I was at squad for swimming or cycling or whatever it was. And I just automatically did those things every morning. Yeah. So you get to 9, 10 a.m. in the morning, and I was getting up at stupid o'clock. But, I've done 3 to 5 hours training, and everyone else is just started. And you feel like you've won the day. You feel tired, but you feel like you've won the day.
Yeah, and that starting the day right as well. I mean, that feels amazing, just having the right habits and routines around that, which, again, talking to Greg when I've said, how do you make sure that you don't mess up the streak? It's like the night before, the shoes are out, the running gear's out, there's nothing that gets in his way between waking up and making sure that the gear goes on. And once the gear's on, that's one of the biggest barriers. You've got kind of no real reason not to get out the door if the gear's on. For me, if I'm making excuses and being a bit of a pussy in the morning, it's just, what am I going to wear? And again, it's when, is it in the drawer? Is it on the line? Did I not put it away? Oh, I can't find my flip belt. Oh, I'm not going to go. I can't be, I've just killed half an hour that I could have been out running if I was prepared. Yeah. Because that preparation is key for anything that you do in life. So, I've still got a bit of work to do on that, and, I'm okay. And I also like knowing that I know that I've got the work and I know where I can improve. So there's that kind of game and element as well in the mind of, there's room for improvement. We'll get there. It's,
look, I feel like a little bit of a fraud talking about this stuff because I think maybe past Leigh needs to have a chat with present Leigh just about this stuff. But what they'd say, or my coach, one coach in particular, Sean, would say to me, because triathlon, you are dead set exhausted 95% of the time, and you never really feel like doing it. And what he'd say is, just do the warm-up. So the warm-up in just about everything is 20 minutes, half an hour. And he's like, if you still feel terrible after the warm-up, pull the pin. But you get the warm-up done, and then you're like, I might as well do the first effort. And then you get that done, and you're like, that was okay. And eventually, before you know it, you're through it. But pushing through that adversity where you don't want to do something, but you get it done anyway, you get to the end of that. Keeping promises like that to yourself changes the whole way you go about life. It's interesting living. So I live in Queensland at the moment, but I'm from Melbourne, and we're obviously back and forth. And you live in Melbourne, but when I lived in Melbourne, the weather is so horrendous there. It's not horrendous all the time. The weather is so unpredictable there.
That's better.
Yeah. That if you're waiting for good weather, you'll never get anything done. and I was actually talking to someone about this the other day. Every day of the year, I would wake up when it was dark to begin training. Didn't matter whether it was summer, winter, it was always dark. Where up here, the weather is a lot more consistent and nice. So training is often enjoyable.
Yeah, I just looked at the next 7-day forecast, 22 and sunny every day.
Yeah. Where I mean, Melbourne, it could be anything any day.
1 degree most mornings for the last week. So, yeah, that's fun.
But interestingly, in Melbourne, I was so disciplined because you learnt to get over those excuses quickly, otherwise nothing would get done. Where up here, there's a little bit of a drizzle, I'm like, it's a bit cold outside, I might not go.
Oh, God. Yeah, no, in Melbourne, that'd be the dream. It'd be like, 18, little bit of drizzle. Like, man, I'm going. I'm out there.
Yeah. It's funny, all the people up for the marathon, I saw them, like, running in the lead up. They're all tops off. I'm like, guys, it's freezing. Like, I've got 3 layers on. So you've known your business partner for 20 year, 22 years.
Yep. 14. I'm 36, turning 37. So, 22 years, maybe coming up on 23 years. So
that's a long time to manage any relationship.
And basically work together the entire time. So from Macca's into juniors together at an accounting firm. I never wanted to be an accountant. I fell into it maybe through his influence, like naturally, like I always looked up to him. He was a year older. He was my crew trainer. He got me into running. He took me for a lap at Listerfield when I was like 17 and he turned 18. Listerfield Lake down in Melbourne.
It's good running.
So then, through Macca's, I then started working at a surf shop, but then he took a part-time job at an accounting firm. And that was probably the only gap that we had between maybe 18 and 21, but he still worked at Macca's. So we still had the Macca's time together. I had then also had the part-time job at the surf shop. He had the starting of his accounting career. And in year 11, I did year 12 business management and I topped the school from year 11. I topped year 12. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but business seemed to be a bit of a knack. So I was like, okay.
Topped year 12, did you?
Yeah.
A little bit of a nerd at school,
yeah, mate, massive. I was school captain. Next year I was school captain. I was the cool nerd. I'm going to throw it out there, right? Anyone from Lindale, don't get in the comments and confirm whether that's true or not. So, but year 11, did year 12, didn't do accounting in year 11. It was an option, but I went, no, I don't want to be an accountant, that. But there was some elective that got pulled from year 12. So the careers advisor and the people at school were like, oh, well, you did really well at business and this subject's gone, but you're good at math and you're good at English. Like, we'll just chuck you into the accounting, elective. And then I'm like, oh, whatever. And again, that just came naturally. Like I could look at a P&L and a balance sheet and a T ledger and go, yeah, that all makes sense. Debits, credits. I could see things that other people couldn't. So I was like, okay, maybe this is all right. And the careers advisor was like, look, just pick business as your major, pick business as your course at university, and then you can choose your majors as you go. So if you fall into accounting, banking and finance, whatever it was. And my uncle did banking and finance. And I was like, yeah, banking and finance seems like a pretty cool thing to get into. But I also did the accounting parts as well. And then as I was going through that, I was snowboarding a lot from the surf shop. So I wanted to be a snowboarder. I was testing gear through the surf shop. They got us like rides with K2 and all this different stuff. So I was testing gear. That was going well. And then Greg's like, mate, you're about to finish your degree. I'm like, nah, look, I don't even know if I really want it. I want to do something different. I don't want to be an accountant. He's like, and then another girlfriend at the shop, she's like, mate, you can't get 75, 80% way through a degree and not finish it. Just finish your degree, then decide what you want to do. And I went to be a cop. I did all of the cop stuff. I don't know what was going through young JSO's head, but
I could actually see you as a cop. You look a little bit like a Surfers Paradise cop, like a Cavalab cop.
You get the tight shirt on, get the chest, just get peacocking, just the stash and I just clean shave everything else. Yeah, actually, you're right. I saw a guy that looked like me, the other day. So, so that and then Greg turned again, like this, he's been a great influence my whole life. And then hopefully I've been able to do some back the other way with, the experience he's had with this running and weight loss and, sub 3 hour marathon goal. But he turned around, he's like, finish your degree. I did it. And then again, I was like, nah, I had an opportunity to go and do some more snowboarding. He's like, reality check. He's like, mate, you're not even that good. I'm like, I know, but I'm having fun. He goes, you need a career. He's like, I got you a job. I'm like, I don't want a job. He goes, well, you're gonna let me down if you don't come for the job interview. It's basically a done deal. Come and work a little bit at the accounting firm, and if you don't like it, then you can go. But you got to show me you don't like it first. And he obviously knew me better than I did at the time. And
this is your mate. You're the same age.
Same guy. He's
not your dad having a chat
1 year
with you.
older.
Yeah,
Well, he's a very mature. He was very mature. Like he was the kid at 18 that had. He's putting half his pay into the stock market buying shares while everyone else was buying the new travesty T-shirt, the old scratch and sniff Stevie T-shirts or whatever they were called. I was dropping $90 a weekend on a new T-shirt with
they used to have the hyper color where you put the
heat. Oh god, they were awful. We won't find old photos and show a flashback, but so he was the guy putting money into stocks, and then he was going to get the job. So I went for the job interview thinking that accounting was going to be this dry, boring, terrible industry to be in, which it's got that perception.
Yeah, what do accountants use as contraceptives?
Their personality. I've got a bad one, but we'll say it offline. So went into the job interview. The three guys that interviewed me, the three owners of this firm, Inside Accounting, they had Beaconsfield, Cranbourne, Pakenham, local southeast suburbs of Melbourne.
Yep.
Went in and sat down, and the first question was, what football team do you go for? I was like, oh shit, that's a weird question for accounting. I'm like, I go for the Bombers. And then one guy's like, oh, fuck that. He was a Collingwood supporter, and there's Geelong and whatever else. And I'm like,
I didn't realise that. You might not have got in here if I had known.
What are you?
Hawthorn.
This year's not too bad for that. There's not, the rivalry's there. But we beat Collingwood, so I'm up and about at the moment. So life's good. And then, they're like, oh, do you like horse racing? I'm like, yeah, I go to the horse races most weekends. They're like, oh, tick, tick. And then, do you drink beer? I'm like, I don't mind a beer. Yeah, I love a beer. They're like, tick, tick. They're like, cool. Can you start next Monday? And I'm like, fuck, are they going to ask me anything about accounting? And in the end, they said something along the lines of, when you start next week, we're going to get you doing basses.
Yeah.
And I was freaking out. I'm like, what the fuck's a bass? You come out of uni, you don't learn that stuff. And this is my frustration with the education now, which is why I do the work with the CPA, why I do work with Xero, because promoting accounting and making sure business owners get the right help and get looked after. There's a lot of businesses, most businesses fail. The stats around a business failure, 80% of businesses don't exist 5 years after they start.
So you get to look under the hood of these businesses. Sorry to interrupt you, by the way. Right. But you get to look under the hood. Why do most businesses fail in the first 5 years?
Cash flow.
Yeah.
Cash flow. They don't understand the difference between, raising bills, raising invoices, getting sent bills, overcommitting to things, and the difference between, getting the wheels turning, but a delay in cash flow then stops you from paying GST, paying tax. Most of the time, they're failing their tax obligations. You raise your first, you make your first $100,000, cool. But of that $100,000, $10,000 has got to go pretty much in GST. $25,000 if you're a company goes in company tax. Then if you're the business owner and you stripped most of that money out, another 10+%'s got to go to the personal income tax. So really, your $100,000 became 60 really fast. But because you got the $100,000 in your hands, most small business owners, when they start spend the whole $100,000, they get the first year tax bill and they go, shit, where am I going to get the $40,000 from, Jace?
Yep.
I go, well, you shouldn't have spent it.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. So then again, you get down this conundrum of too many people can easily start a business without knowing the basics of how to do it. I mean, and this is a kid that just went through bachelor degree in business, majoring in accounting and banking and finance. I didn't know what a BAS was. So if I don't know what a BAS was, what's the basic person who can register an ABN and start, raising invoices? How are they going to know what a BAS is? And
so I think I might have spoken about this on the last podcast, but I'll talk about it again because I think it's a good point. When I was 30, I had no money, I had negative money. And then I got super interested and curious about how to make money. To me, my approach in the world is if you find anyone who has something that you've got, if you look at them, their habits, and you do what they do, you will end up with something approximating what they've got. And at the foundation of my thinking here is there's no real difference between you and I. You're just doing something different. So you're either doing something I'm not prepared to do, or you know something I don't know. So if I'm prepared to imitate your actions and find out what it is that you know, I can have what you have. And that's what I did with triathlon, and that's my approach to cash.
Yep.
So I went on this whole journey, and I mean, the journey continues now. But one of the first stops on that journey was this book that I read called The Richest Man in Babylon. Mm-hmm. So The Richest Man in Babylon, for the listeners, it's from like the 1930s or something. And it's a very difficult read, but it's a short read, and it's a parable about how to manage money, essentially. And one of the rules, the rules of money. Sorry, the way the book goes is it says if you need to understand, it says, let me start again.
You get it.
With money, there's rules that determine how money goes around. And if you understand the rules and apply the rules, you can have it as well. And one of the first rules in there is a percentage of everything you own, everything you earn is yours to keep. And what it meant by this, or what I took from it, is a percentage of everything you earn, you keep, but that's your forever fund. So it's for your retirement, it's for investing, it's for your first home, it's for whatever. But what most people do is they get their pay and the tax man's already taken their cut. And they don't realise that the cut the tax man took, that's your money too. You earned it. They just took it before you saw it, so you wouldn't get upset about it, right? So that's the first thing. And then what most people do is they go out and they pay everyone else first, right? So they pay, their rent, their bills, blah, 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 blah. And then what they say is they're like, hey, if at the end of, or whatever I've got left over at the end of this, I'll keep that. But the issue is what we have is lifestyle creep. So you earn a little bit more money, you get a slightly better car, maybe you go on another holiday. And if there's one thing that I can assure you, well, I can't assure you, my experience is that, my business partner has a little boat, and whenever we drive past other boats, like we look at them, and he always goes, Leigh, there's always a bigger boat. But it's this parable for life, right? In that there's always more and more things and more ridiculous ways to spend your money. Your lifestyle creep can't stop. I mean, maybe if you're Elon Musk levels, it can stop. But even then, he's spending his money trying to go to Mars. So what happens is you get this lifestyle creep and you just keep spending everything you've got. And for me, the first thing I did with money was I paid myself first. So what I did, and when I learnt this, this is embarrassing, but at the time, I didn't have a job. Like I said, I had negative money. I was in debt. So no job, no prospects, in a lot of trouble, but I was hungry and curious. And I read this and I'm like, got to pay myself first. So I would literally transfer money out of one bank account I had into another bank account. And I began at $100 a week, even though I was bringing nothing in. But for me, it was the principle. And then when I got a job and I started earning money, I would look at my pre-tax amount. Right? So if I'm, getting $100,000 a year, I wouldn't go, well, after that I get $70,000 in the hand, so then I'm saving $7. When it came in, I'd look at what I earned before the tax was taken out, and I'd put 10% of that into a forever account. And that was my investing money. And that's how I first bought shares, then I bought my first property, and then how I leveraged that into my owner occupied, which was my third property. But that principle, and how this goes full circle back to what you were talking about, for me, the fundamental of money is exactly that. When money comes in, it doesn't go everywhere else first. What you do consistently and what you do first is your priority. And for me anyway, if putting money away was the first thing I thought about, that's what I did. And then I started getting pissed off about this tax thing. I'm like, well, how to work, as you well know.
It's my life.
But how can I reduce it? And that's what led me to, investment property, blah, blah, blah. But all of it began from the principle of pay yourself first, 10% of everything you earn is yours to keep. Man, that was a long rant. Sorry about that.
No, it's a perfect principle and something that everyone needs to learn, and they don't teach it. So you've actually got to go and develop and self-find these skills to learn. And again, frustration with the schooling system, frustration with university, and then it's getting in the real world. You've got to actually find these skills and develop it yourself. And, even the podcast for the Numbers Game, we 3 co-hosts, we rock up and do...
shout out to the Numbers Game.
Shout out, thank you. I was always going to work in it at some point. So it's happened a little bit earlier. I had it booked for about another 15 minutes from now, but here we are. The basic episode we did the other week, and we're tangenting, but throw it in there. The stage 3 tax cuts just happened. So most Australian taxpayers have an extra about $40 a week in their pocket right now. Like what you said, lifestyle creep. If the money's in the account, you find a way to spend it. Psychologically, that's how humans are wired at the moment. You're scrolling Facebook and Instagram, there's ads popping up for something that you want, whether it's fucking nose strips or, the extra whitening tooth or the new running gear, whatever it is, that if your algorithm knows about it, it'll be there. And if you've got that extra $40 that you didn't plan for, you didn't plan for it, but it's there, you're going to find a way to spend it. Mm-hmm. Unless you actually deliberately make a choice to go, well, I got by last year okay with the interest rates that I'm paying, with everything else going on. But you know what? I've crept up a little bit on my credit card debt. So maybe that $40 a week extra that I'm getting in my pay that I didn't have last year, automatic transfer to the credit card. Or if you've got a help debt, chuck it on your help debt to get rid of that thing before it goes up by indexation again on June the 1st, 2025 we're heading into. Yeah. So it's all these little micro decisions you can make that seem really small today. $40 a week, not going to make a difference. I'll just buy an extra 10 coffees a week. Fuck that. Make the right decisions now to use that small, what can be for some people it's actually a decent chunk to be able to make some impact on. And that $40 a week for a year, you can look back and go, shit, actually, that's a pretty big impact when I'm not paying the extra 20% interest on my credit card, or when the help debt repayment comes out at the end of the year, you've paid down your help debt, which is, it's just going to keep going up. So they're those decisions that people can make from something that, every Australian taxpayer pretty much got the tax cut. You got to choose how you're going to use it, or you're just going to let it kind of get gobbled away with that mentality of every dollar that comes in after tax, spend it on whatever you want.
Yeah, well, it's like the same in Queensland. They everyone got the cost of living relief on their electricity bill. So I got a bill with $1,000 credit on it.
Nice.
And it's the same thing. You could just, because that's on your electricity bill, so you don't have a bill now. So you could spend that money out of your pay, or you could put it into your forever account. Something I wanted to touch on here that you were kind of talking about was another book that I read at the very early stages of my financial journey, for want of a better word, was a book called The Millionaire Next Door. Mm-hmm. So The Millionaire Next Door, again, it's not the most interesting. Well, it was interesting, but it was written by data scientists, and they're worse than accountants on the personality front.
So I got one up on them. I'm more excited.
But what these guys did was, and a millionaire is not really a millionaire anymore. It's kind of a 10 millionaire. But we get what we mean when we say millionaire. So they went out and they took a statistical approach to looking at the spending habits of the wealthier Americans, and all of what they said was backed up by data that they'd done. But my takeaway from it was, overwhelmingly, wealthy people aren't buying flashy, showy stuff. One of the biggest things they do is they live below their means. Yep. So they looked at the average car that they bought, and it was just like, it was knockabout cars. It wasn't Maseratis or whatever, insert whatever here. They looked at the homes that they owned, and compared to their wealth, they were very modest homes. Yep. And that was a shift for me, because I always thought you do well, you show it off a little bit. Yeah. This is a reward for me. I've done really well. But that changed me a little bit, particularly around cars, where, like, the car I drive's all right now, and I get loans for cars because I do it through the business, but I won't buy a car unless I could afford to pay for it cash. And more importantly, I would pay for it in cash, because if I'm having to get a loan and I wouldn't fork out that much cash out of my bank account, then I'm overspending. Yep. And the reason I'm overspending is because I've got access to easy credit. And, that's like I'm in a better financial position now than what I was earlier. Earlier, I just had to have a car, so I had to get a loan.
Yeah.
But it was a modest loan for a cheap car.
Yeah. And it's the people that have overreached now that are really feeling the pain. The ones that when interest rates were 2% to buy a home, they probably should have spent 800, but they spent $1 million or 1.1 or 1.2 because they could get the money. And now a few years on, when the interest rate goes from 2% to 6% on their home loan, we've got a lot of people that are doing it tough out there that are really kind of, there's not a lot of money left over at the end of the month when you're paying those kind of interest rates when you could barely afford it at the start. And likewise with the cars, we got, unfortunately I see it all the time and time again. You've got the upgrades after 2 or 3 or 4 years. Yes, it's a tax write-off. Yeah, it's really cool. It's great. I want the new car. But what happened was during COVID, when you had the immediate write-off, let's say you've got Dave, the tradie that bought the $70,000 Ford Ranger, and he got to write that whole thing off, the whole 70 grand, got the GST back, wrote the 70 grand off, probably saved him 20, 30 grand in tax that particular year because of the immediate write-off. A year or two later, the next one's come out and we're like, shit, Dave's going to go and upgrade to the newest Ford Ranger or whatever the shiny new toy is. But let's say that Ford Ranger held its value and it got sold for $70,000 2 years later. There's no immediate write-off last year's financial year. So that 70 grand's now coming in as full income. Got to pay tax on the 70 grand. You got to pay the GST. You got to pay tax on the profit. And then when you got the new replacement vehicle, you're only getting a really small depreciation number on that new vehicle. So I'm turning around going, cool, here's your tax bill. Especially when they're pay-as-you-go earners too, that are all of a sudden having to declare taxable income on the sale of a motor vehicle. Or sole traders that have it through their personal tax return. They're going, what do you mean, Jace? You usually get me a $5 grand or a 10 grand refund every year because of all my deductions. What do you mean I've got a $15,000 tax bill? Well, I'm like, well, you just sold your car for 70 grand.
Don't get angry at me, Dave.
And it's obviously it's not at me, but like I feel myself and my team feel the brunt of the aggression or the rage that the tax man's fucking people over. But it's like, it was just a timing thing. You got the immediate write-off that would have usually been spread over 5 years or whatever. And, by not understanding, and sometimes it's communication, you can communicate till the cows come home, but we understand this stuff because we do it every day as accountants. And often sometimes it gets lost in translation that there wasn't enough of an explanation. And that's where, we can always learn and go back to the drawing board of, okay, how do we make this really clear? But also the rules change every couple of years. So even if we advised on what we knew at the time 2 years ago during COVID, and then the next year or two later, the government changes the goalposts again. We can only do with what we've got from the legislation that's in play at the time. And, we're kind of strung by that. But yeah, it's been difficult to kind of have those conversations where people are going, well, where am I going to find the 15 or 20 grand for a bill? And you see it in the article, all the media at the moment, this time of year, they love showing all the articles of, all the social media influencers that get on and share their tax return images on TikTok, where they're expecting a refund and they've got a 5 grand or a 7 grand bill because they didn't tick the help debt box when they got a job, or they're working 2 jobs because a lot of people have taken 2 jobs because they can't get full-time work. So they're working 2 part-time jobs, but they tick the tax-free threshold box twice. So they've got an extra 20 grand tax-free that they should have been taxed on. And if they're paying an average rate of 30 cents to the dollar, they've got to find 6 grand. And they're going, so
a lot of Daves are our clients. And I get a couple of points I wanted to rip out of there. The first thing with tax deductions is what people tend to forget is you spend $1 and you get 30 cents back. You're still you're
still 70 cents worse off.
It's a terrible return. So there's no point in unnecessarily buying things just for tax write-offs. The other thing we find with Dave is we have a lot of Dave equivalents who are earning good money.
Which are great clients too. I love Dave's.
So, a lot of tradies are on a good clip at the moment. For our clients in Queensland, we have quite a few FIFO workers. There's some people out there earning some good money, but they do exactly what you're talking about, where they buy an $80,000 car and they're on, I don't know, say they're on 150 grand a year. They buy an $80,000 car and then they wonder why they can't buy a home. And it's because absolutely destroys your servicing. So, you know, when I think about priorities, don't get me wrong, nice things are nice, right?
Yeah.
Like I like to have a nice car too, but I didn't get my nice car until, where are we at? I'm 12 years down the track. I think I bought my first genuine, nice new car a week ago.
Yep.
But it took me 12 years to build up to that. First thing I did was I had to clear off all of my debts. Then I saved up my money. I invested in the stock market. Then when I had enough money from there, I invested in investment properties. Then I needed a roof over my head because I had enough money now. So I bought a principal place of residence. Like, I'd spent a long time building up to that before I bought the frivolous things. And an 80 grand car is I think, it's frivolous. You can get away with a 20 or 30 grand one. And it's not to say that you can never have the nice car. You can.
Yeah.
But,
priorities.
you know, it's like the Warren Buffett quote where he goes, the stock market is the most effective method I know from taking money from the impatient and giving it to the patient. And then I apply that thinking to all these other things in life. And it's like, personal loans for 80 grand cars are a very effective way of taking money from the impatient and giving it to the patient.
They're like 9%, 10%, 11% now. It's not the glory days of when they were advertising going, come and buy a new car, we'll give you 1%. Those days are gone. It just doesn't happen at the moment. So, but now the principal place of residence is the next on the list for us. We tried to get in the market pre-COVID, and it's probably one of my biggest regrets since you mentioned it. But we're on the hunt now, Case and I, to find that principal place of residence. We've been out of the market for too long. We both had previous partners. I had a property, and then through the separation many years ago now, sold the house that we're in.
Where?
Skye. It was awesome. We
Sky's Dandenong way, is it?
Cranbourne, Seaford. Just kind of if you follow the Bayside around Seaford, go inbound towards Cranbourne. You got Skye, which is this little pocket. But
sorry to keep interrupting you. What type of house was it? Old, new?
Brand new. So there was a block that was for sale in like a developed estate, but it was like 5 metre slope over 32 metres, and no one could build on it. But obviously, being an accountant, got some good connections in the building time. And this is back when that first job with Greg. You know, I was only a couple of years in, was able to kind of learn some good habits, save some money, and again, the uncle that was a mortgage broker was able to kind of wheel and deal. But we got the land at a steal because the guy had held onto it for a long time and nobody could build on it. He had plans to build on it. All the builders were like, just the site costs and everything were monstrous.
5 metres of fall, that's the thing nightmares are made of.
Yeah, over 32 metres as well. It's not a very long block. So
over 32 metres?
32.
Oh, look, it's a ski slope is what it is.
Yeah, whatever it was. It basically, it was, mate, when you stand at the top of the block looking down, you're like, shit.
You better not slip here.
I wouldn't want to fall down. But from the top of the block, though, you know, you could see the water out at the beach kind of along the horizon. I was like, fuck, this is cool. I'm going to buy it and just find a way to make it happen. Yeah. So we got and again, when you're dealing with real estate agents, got plenty of them as clients too, but the mind games and whether it was happening, we put an offer in, I think it was like 190. Yeah. And it had been for sale for 2 or 210 for a long time. And, you know, and again, it's been for sale for over a year. It hasn't moved. The whole estate's developed bar this one weirdly shaped block with a bit of an easement. We put the offer in at 190.
With an easement, a chair lift.
Yeah, correct. So we got the phone call going, oh, look, Jace, love to sell this property to you at that price, but we've just had another offer. So if you can increase your offer, you know, we might be able to make it yours, but if not, like, that's just not going to cut it.
And that's page 1 in the land agent playbook.
Yeah, but, you know, as a 20, I think I was 26, 27 at the time, I was like, shit, like I really want, like I got emotionally kind of attached to it. I really wanted it.
And then rely on that.
Yeah. And then I went back and went, no, stick to your guns. Like, you know, fortunately the brother-in-law, you know, just went, no, put your foot down. They lived around the corner. They were kind of helping us, or the ex-brother-in-law. Yeah. And, you know, got it. Then the builder that I knew through the accounting firm, they came in and went, yeah, cool, you know, because we're referring them work. They're like, look, we'll just do you a solid. We're not going to make any money off kind of that part of the site, getting it all ready. And then 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car garage, big outdoor area, the lawn kind of around it, the outdoor area was elevated at the back. You could see the water and the horizon. Beautiful property. And unfortunately, in the separation, made the call to sell it. I couldn't afford at the time, whatever the mortgage was going to be as a, young second, third year accountant on probably a 60K salary back then. I think wasn't affordable.
Yeah. Separations are rough.
It was what hurt was a couple of years later when I saw it go on the market again for about 400,000-500,000 more than what we got rid of it for. It's like in hindsight kind of thing that always happens, but.
Oh, well, but the thing is, everyone has hindsight right now, because you're like, I wish I had known. But at the time, people would have told you property is going to, people. Maybe. If you had have looked at the historical trends, and you could afford it, which clearly you couldn't, but property was going to go up. And everyone goes, I wish I had have bought a property whenever in the past. But you try and have the same conversation now where you're like, yes, but where you are right now, in 10 years' time, people will be saying exactly the same thing. You're like, no way, it can't keep going up. It's like, of course that's a possibility, but it would be bucking the trend of forever.
Yep. So 60 or 70 years of consistent property price growth in Australia. You have to be pretty brave to be the person who goes against that and says, oh, no, it's definitely going to come back the other way now. It's like, well, it's a perfect storm of supply and demand. We have so much demand for property in Australia and we've got a limited supply. So all that adds up to is prices continuing to go in the upwards direction.
Where's that demand coming from in your book?
Migration's big, and Australia relies on migration to bring in, people to the country who can, do things, add labour to our growing GDP and workforce. So I think that's probably the biggest kind of factor. And then also, everyone's kind of growing families, having kids. The more that happens, we've got more people. Melbourne's going to be the biggest capital city or the biggest city in Australia by 2030 or whatever. So the amount of people moving to an area that is really struggling with infrastructure concerns me. And then you've got the issue of, materials go up, costs of workforce goes up, and all of a sudden the supply demand becomes we can't build enough homes to provide for the people that need them. I think we've got a shortage of 150,000 dwellings in Victoria over the coming couple of years.
Yeah, so it's all over the country and it's getting worse. But I tell you what, I've got a hot tip for Melbourne. If you have a look at Melbourne property prices, I think it's the third most expensive city in the country now. Might even be fourth. I was looking anyway.
Yep.
The point of the story is it goes Sydney, Brisbane, then Melbourne.
Yep.
I'm telling you, this is a statistical anomaly. Melbourne is not that cheap. Melbourne is a percentage of Sydney and not that big a one. I will go to the bank on this. You can bet your bottom dollar somewhere in the next 12 minutes to 12 months. No, I'm joking. somewhere in the next, say, 6 to 18 months, Melbourne property prices are going to rocket up. They have to. Yep. And I'm already starting to see rumblings of it. So the first thing that happens in a market is investors start to come back in. And what the problem with Melbourne for investors has always been rental yields. They're a little bit low. So rents have jacked up a little bit, which helps. But it is just so clearly undervalued. And if you were looking to buy an investment property and you asked me where to buy now, provided you could overcome the cash flow shortfall, Melbourne is 100% the go. Yep. I'm telling you, you're going to make 200 to 400 grand in a very, very short amount of time.
The signs are there. And even with I think what we saw was the initial reaction to all the new land taxes and duties and everything that was put in Victoria.
COVID tax.
COVID tax. You had this exodus of people going, whoa, fuck Victoria. I'm gonna sell my investment property and I'm gonna go buy somewhere else.
Yeah.
But again, the transactional cost of selling that property as a bit of a fuck you to Victoria and a fuck you to Dan Andrews becomes stamp duty. He wins again. And then all of a sudden to get back into a property in another state, you've got different duties and different taxes elsewhere. They might not be as much, but other states will follow. I think I've said it and seen other people say it, that Victoria's gone and added all these taxes, windfall tax, development tax, the different land tax, the new stamp duty, the rolling stamp duty that'll be every year instead of a one-off, all these things I think we've got 12 different property taxes in Victoria, compared to the average of 7 or 8 everywhere else. But what happens is everyone goes, oh, well, you know, stuff this, we'll get out, we'll sell. And it kind of fluctuates the property price at the moment. But all of a sudden, like what you said, everything stacks up that Melbourne's going to be the biggest capital city by 2030. That's only 5 or 6 years away. Supply and demand, people want to live in Melbourne and all its regional and hubs and all around. It's a great place to live, you know, aside from the crappy weather and everything else. But
aside from that, everything else is excellent. Carry on.
And that's it. So I agree with you. I think, you know, I'm not a property expert. I sit back as an accountant doing my tax and everything else that I do. But for doing all that on the computer, tapper every day. But again, I fortunately get to do this a lot. I get to talk to people. My you know, I don't sit behind actually doing much of the tax returns or the financials, if any at all. I talk to people. And it's the bit I love about my job, which is why when Greg said you should be an accountant, I'm going, I don't want to be an accountant. I want to talk to people. I want to be an advisor. I want to work in business and do fun stuff. And little did I know that accounting was actually going to fuel an awesome career. Like, I have a fun life. I'm going to Nashville in a couple of weeks because Xero is sending me over there to represent, you know, the Xero Advisory Council, but you know,
and to do some boot scooting,
and
to see the Hock Tour girl.
Mate, if my wife's listening, he said it, not me. So we've been staying with her cousin and her husband all week.
What, the Hock Tour girl?
No. Just like, it was literally a 15-minute walk to get here today, which worked out really well. But the cousin and the cousin's husband are in the apartment with us, and all week we've just been talking about Hock Tour, everything. Like, he'd be like, "You guys want lunch?" I'm like, "Hock Tour, I can have some lunch." It's like, why are we even doing this? Like, it just got out of control, and yeah, I'm in trouble now if I say Hock Tour again. So I didn't say it. Leigh brought it up, not me. But yeah, as soon as my business partner saw that and went, "Jace, do you know the Hock Tour girls in Nashville?" Like, I'm like, please don't send me this, because if my wife reads the message, she's going to think like this is a thing, and it's not a thing. It's not a thing. So yeah. Anyway,
something interesting I thought you were talking about before with that block of land is it's an issue that we see a lot of clients run into, where quite often they see an impossibly cheap block of land, and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing," and they just sign up for it and buy it. And then we discover that, you know, it'll be on it's got a gradient, there's 2 metres of fall, or it doesn't work, or maybe there's mining underlay. We've had people do it in a flood zone. It's just like, Jesus, guys. Because a block of land, whilst it may look brilliant and it might be in the right area, there's a lot more that goes into building a home than just going, "Oh, the price of this one's good." Yeah. So you were lucky that you had someone in the building game who was prepared to essentially do you a cost price build. Otherwise, we
got very lucky. I think when we did sell and then split ways, I mean, we were 200K up 18 months later on the build for the house and land, because it was an already established area. So we had the uplift in, they were looking at comparable prices for the other houses that have been sitting there for 2 years, but ours was brand new. Yep. We'd done the hard yards of getting the house on the block, and yeah, from what we paid for the house and land, I think we were nearly 200K up, and then parted ways and split the money, and away we went. And then
you were married or?
We were just spouse relationship. Late 20s. We're together for a long time. So
it's very responsible of you to get into a home that early.
Yeah. She was a very responsible girl. I think. I was. I've had to learn the lessons, along the way of, credit card debt from the age of 20, because I was living outside of my means. I was the guy who was, I wanted the flashy new things. I wanted to travel, but I wasn't willing to put in the work to put the money aside for it. I wanted it now. And then I always had the mindset that I'm a smart guy. Like, that was my mindset of going, well, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to earn good money because I'm going to put myself in the right positions to do the right things. But rather than wait to have the money or the earning capacity, I'll get what I want now because I just wanted it now, and I'll figure it out later. And it was wrong. It was a bad move. And I learned the hard way that, a credit card, then another credit card, then, a personal loan. And it was actually the selling that house that got me to clear the slate, because, my partner and I, my ex-partner at the time, we had separate finances. So she paid her half of the mortgage and I paid my half. And then I hid all this credit card debt and other stuff because I was off, living this high life of traveling around. I'm like,
the shame.
And then, but the valuable lesson, that then to be able to sit in a room with the clients that, I can sometimes see the spending habits that go the wrong way, or I can see the credit card repayments that are moving between accounts, and often be able to see beyond the bullshit and go, hey, do you want to have a bit of a chat about what's going on? Like, let me help you. So I think going through making some of the mistakes to learn the hard way myself has then meant, from an advisory point of view, you know, I feel like I'm in a pretty fortunate position, or a great position, to be able to start to talk to people about, you know, when they do go down the wrong path, that it's actually okay, and take a deep breath and let other people who have been there, done that, or advisors help you out of it and get you through to the other side. So whereas I think without those experiences, maybe I wouldn't be able to see some of the signs myself in other people.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting you talk about that. In my 20s, my attitude, or the story I told myself, which allowed me to behave in a manner which I knew was irresponsible, like what I would tell myself is, if I've got a bill to pay, I pay it. But, you know, if I'm trying to save money, I always get pissed and spend it.
Yeah.
And that's what I told myself. And, you know, it worked. Well, it didn't work at all because I had no money. But then where I got myself into a bit of trouble when I was 30 was the ABN thing. I was earning on an ABN and just spent it all. And then had a whopping big bill that I had to clean up and no money to do it.
And some people really struggle to come back from that.
Yeah. Well, for me, I had to have a total psychic change, like as in my mentality towards everything I needed to grow up is what I needed to do. I think I got lucky like I've always been motivated, and I've always had the capacity to get stuck on something. And I really got stuck on the money and success thing, and because it was like a big secret, you know. And I wanted to know how other people did, and I was lucky that I got fascinated by it, fascinated enough that it pulled me away from that other junk. The other thing I did was I stopped drinking. I stopped drinking when I was 30, and that changed my life. Like
I can honestly say that I think that is one of my biggest weaknesses and something I need to overcome. My mum passed away a couple of years ago, and through that, like I went on basically a 30-day bender. Like I destroyed myself thinking that was going to make the pain go away, and knowing full well that I'm a smarter guy than that. It was just numbing an inevitable pain that I was going to have to face. Yeah. And then
delaying and intensifying it for later on.
God, full intensify. You know, Mum was 61. It was a full shock. She was going in for a routine, like a spinal fusion. She had diabetes. So she had her health complications, but was not meant to. That wasn't her time. Yeah. And, you know, through some complications, come out of the surgery, all good. Went and visited her. We had a laugh. She's never had a sports bet account, but she was so whacked out on drugs. She asked me to pass her phone. I said, "What do you want your phone for?" She goes, "I've got to put my bets on sports bet." I'm like, "Mum, you don't have a sports bet account." She's like, "Jace, just pass the phone." And we're all pissing ourselves laughing, going, and that was pretty much the last interaction I had with my mum. Case and I left the hospital, and I got a phone call from Dad a few days later saying Mum had passed away that morning. She, you know, her heart gave out on her. And it was like to go through that, and obviously all that stuff. But the alcohol thing, I went from one extreme of 30 days of destroying myself, like really badly, and I still had a business to run, and fortunately again got great business partner and great support around the business. But then I did 150 days alcohol free. Like I just snapped. I went, I can't do this. I can't be that person. I'm going to show that I can get through this without turning to the bottle and drinking alcohol. And I reckon that 150 days is one of the best patches of my life of, you know, thinking clearly, sleeping well, working hard on the business. And I feel alcohol is this massive trap that it's easy to fall back into. And it's easy to kind of go, I'll have one or two, and then one or two becomes, I'll have one or two the next day, and then it's 4, 6, and whatever it is. And it's always easy to convince myself, but look, I like a red wine. I can have a glass of red. But the book, the way I did the 150 days was a book called The Alcohol Experiment by Annie Leigh. And it's 30 chapters over 30 days. And it's so easy to digest and actually kind of get you in the right, you know, you read the first chapter and it's like, hey, let's go on this journey together. You're not perfect. You might slip up. It's all good. Like just embrace this next 30-day journey and take it one chapter at a time. Then you read chapter 1 and it's just education, but it's the stuff that like, you know you should know, and then some of it's not. But the deeper you get into this 30 days, the more hardcore the information gets about what alcohol does to you and why it's so fucking bad. And by day 25, it's kind of like, you know, most cancers are caused by drinking alcohol. You know, most of this is caused by that. Drinking alcohol does this, and you're getting deeper and deeper into this hole. And then at day 30, I was like, well, I might as well just keep going. I'll see what happens. And then that was, 100, 150. And the turning point ended up being, I think it was like I did my first marathon at the end of that 150 days. It was the Run for the Young. Don't recommend it. Sorry if anyone from Run for the Young. It's a real fringe marathon. But it's the Lilydale to Warburton Rail Trail.
Yeah, right.
You go up 5 kilometres up Mount Evelyn, down 16 kilometres along the rail trail, then you turn around and it's a gradual 16K incline all the way up and then 5Ks back down again. And it's horrid. And for a first marathon, as someone who hadn't necessarily put in the work or the nutrition and all the stuff we talked about, go back to start a show if you weren't paying attention. But I was like, couldn't believe it. But so got through that 150 days alcohol-free, did my first marathon and survived. And then a week later was getting married. So at the wedding, it was we just come out of COVID. So I haven't seen the 100, 120 of my best friends and family for 2 years, mostly during COVID. We get to the wedding and, you're popping bottles and you're having a beer with your mates. And that was my first kind of reintroduction back into drinking. And very easily that 150 days of pure bliss, great night's sleep, not, spending extra, you go out for a nice dinner, but then you add the alcohol bill on top. So all those little extra things that I didn't miss for the 150 days, I slipped back into this awesome day of drinking and partying with mates. Then there was the wash-up drinks the next day. Then there was a couple of days of like hanging out with Case at Jackalope down in Mornington Peninsula. Then we had our three-week honeymoon, which was meant to be 8-week European honeymoon. But again, COVID ruined our lives back then. We did a 3-week road trip up to Hunter Valley. So we just stopped in all these little coastal towns, had a beer at a pub, grabbed some wine at a winery, bought 100 bottles of red and different whites up on the Hunter Valley. And
you bought 100 bottles.
Yeah.
To celebrate your 150 days off it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, right. How counterintuitive, and thinking back, just look at it and go, oh, God, what an idiot. And then just slip back into that habit and routine of it's okay to drink, it's not that big a deal. And
let me ask you a question. Why did you need to drink to do all of those things that you just described?
I didn't. I did it for 150 days. I was fine at the party, hanging out with people at the dinner. I think the habit, or I don't know what it is. It's the socially accepted thing. And there's parts of the book that talks about the first time you go out for dinner with a mate who wants to have a beer with you or a drink with you, they go, go on, have a beer, like have a drink with me. But it's not so much about you not having a drink. It's more making it feel okay for them to not be drinking alone. So there's all those things as well. And it's, I know full well all those lessons that I learned over that 150 days and they're back in there somewhere. But I've kind of pushed them off to the side to go back to that more socially accepted norm of being the fun guy that has a beer or, a glass of wine with dinner with the wife and family friends. But
why do you need to have a beer to be the fun guy?
You don't.
So
you don't.
I have a terrible habit of thinking that everyone should do what I'm doing because I'm having such a good time doing it. So on the subject of booze, because I haven't drunk now for 11 or 12 years.
Amazing.
And what I've learned over that time is just to shut up about booze, just let people enjoy their drinking. So I'm not suggesting people should be doing what I'm doing, but I would like to throw out just a thought, right? And this is what this is my observation or experience. Inherent in wanting to drink is a desire to change your state. So my question for you, I'm not actually this rhetorical. So my question would be, what's wrong with you now that you need to change it?
Yeah.
And my suggestion would be fix whatever that is. And I'll give you a working example. People like to drink in social situations because they're uncomfortable. I don't drink and I go to social situations and I hate them because I gotta make small talk with people I don't know. Oh, where are you from? What do you do for a job? Like, it's just not my jam. I enjoy talking about deep, big subjects. Like, I love this, right? But the small talk I'm not about. I would love to have a couple of beers or a glass of wine just to take the edge off that. But the real problem is I'm uncomfortable. I'm socially awkward. So rather than using alcohol as my crutch, why wouldn't I just fix that? The other thing that I'd say is many of the things that people do whilst drinking are actually very, very boring. They're just an excuse for drinking. So if you find, what I found was when I got off the booze, I would go and do the things that I used to do, but I'd do them alcohol free, and I go, actually, this is crap.
Yeah.
I'm leaving. You like when you go and drink with someone, you might spend 6-7 hours with them. But when I'm not drinking, like 2 to 3 hours, I top out with most
More than
people.
enough.
Yeah. So that's my thought. That's my thought around booze. But I just leave it alone because plenty of people love drinking, and that's your life, not mine.
I made that mistake in the 150 days of like everything I was going through was such a unique experience that it was the first time I drank heavily from 15 or 16. But it also goes through the lessons, and like I was fascinated by this, and again, that book kind of goes, what was your first experience with alcohol when you were a child? Like, what do you remember as your first experience with alcohol? And I would always read the chapter right before bed. So you'd be lying there, I'd be in like a pretty zenned out state. I've got a bit of a nighttime ritual. And my wife, if she's listening, if she'll probably listen to this, I'm a high like stress in a sense. Like I function like I've fucking got heaps of shit on the go. I'm go. I'm on the phone there. I'm sending a Slack message there. There's a text on that. There's 14 conversations going on at a time. It's go. Then the day's over and I go, oh, now what should I do? Like, but I'm fucking wired. Like, so my nighttime ritual to get out of that state, still needs a bit of work. But part of reading at night before falling asleep, I like to read. Mostly Harry Potter. No, I'm just kidding. I do love a Harry Potter book though. And I was reading this book, and so that thing of the first thing you think of, and it was like this thing popped in of like, Dad would come home after a tough day at work. He's stressed. He's had a tough day at work, and he'd knock the top off a beer, and he'd pretty much chug the first one down, and the second one would be poured in, and he'd go and sit down and relax and like put the 5 o'clock news on, whatever. And Mum would be like, boys, don't annoy your dad until he's had time to relax. So then I think like what it talks about, what's hardwired into you, those lessons that you pick up as a child or your inner child knows. What was hardwired into me was a lot of, having that beer or the glass of wine was about relaxing. It was about taking the edge off or whatever it was the ability to relax. So if I'd worked hard all week, I deserved to relax. Or if I'd done the 20K run or the high rock session, I could have a beer or two because I earned it and I get to relax after that. And I think that's what's built into the connection with alcohol for me at a deeper level. And it was then the lessons through that book of how to unwire those built-in lessons. And again, I'm back to drinking, not a lot, not too heavily, but it's there. And it's something that I know that if I want to potentially get me to the next level where it becomes to a 3.5 hour marathon at Chicago, there's some training sessions I missed. Not before London. Before London, I was pretty rock solid. But between London and Gold Coast, there was a couple of Saturdays or Sundays where I was a bit hungover, and rather than putting the right steps in place to make sure I woke up in the morning, smashed that short black, and got to training, I was waking up going, oh, fuck, shit, better have the extra hydrolyte. Oh, I'm late to the training session now. Oh, like I won't do 35K today. I'll just do 27, and I'll pull back, and 27's still a good run. But it was all these excuses that were fueled by making the wrong decisions around alcohol. So I know that's a weakness that I can always improve on. But yeah, during that 150 days, because I was going down the rabbit hole, anyone that I was in a conversation with that, would give me a minute of their time, like, hey, did you know that alcohol does this? And alcohol is super addictive. And, after this many days, my REM's increased this much because I've tracked my REM when I'm not drinking. And like, people are like, fuck, would you shut up?
Yeah, like, just let me enjoy my wine.
Yeah, and then because also then, how they felt about alcohol, even if they deep down knew that maybe they shouldn't be having the 5th or 6th glass of wine. And I'm sitting there going, well, actually, what you have done there is, and they're like, shit. But I got a good mate of mine, who he was struggling with alcohol, and he ended up doing the 30 days and then extended on as well. And, he turned around, and it was a big turning point in his life to discover, again, the reasons why every day he'd come home from work and, smash a couple of glasses of whiskey or whatever. So, yeah, not an alcohol podcast right now, but, if you want to check out the 30-day alcohol experiment. And she talks at the end of going, you probably will get back into drinking, and that's okay. But what you've learned over this 30 days, you can keep revisiting it. When you start to feel like you're slipping out of control, go back to the 30-day book and read the chapters again, and, just kind of keep balancing it out. And
my life took off about 4 years in. And then my life stepped up another level, probably about 10 years in.
Yeah.
And that is how long being off the booze. Being off the booze was one thing, but it was the flow-on effect of that. So then, that I was exercising all the time. I was super consistent. I learned how to be very comfortable in uncomfortable situations. I got really good with money. I would blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
All of that other stuff that flowed on from that. A lot of those things took years for sort of the compound effect to kick in. So my challenge to you, my friend, is if you want to do something extraordinary in your life, I mean something that you didn't even believe possible. So in your mind, you've got a whole heap of goals, right? There are things that would be so far beyond that you couldn't even think of them. My challenge to you is if you were able to give up taking drugs, which booze
alcohol,
is, for an extended period of time, you would astonish yourself at what you could achieve. Or if you're happy, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, there's challenges out there, and something I've got to kind of accept or not accept, and it's there. I think it's that thing that hovers in the back of the mind because while I've got a pretty extraordinary life, like I get to do some really cool things, as I was saying, and all the different. I put myself in those positions where we talk about earned luck versus luck. And I feel like my earned luck over life of, going for that job that Greg got me, getting into that position and then, getting put onto a course called Business Blueprint to learn about business ownership and, marketing and all these different things that not every 22, 23-year-old junior accountant, 24, whatever I was, got to go and do this course. And at mid-20s, I knew more about starting, running and owning a business, and I'd never had one, but I sat in a room, Business Blueprint, I'd sit in a room in Sydney for 4 days every quarter with 300 business owners on a round table. And I was, as much as I'm not a quiet guy and I love a chat, in this environment as a mid-20-year-old surrounded by probably 30 to 35-year-old plus business owners who are running established, successful businesses, I sat there and nobody would give me the time of day because I was a 25-year-old who'd just started his accounting career. I didn't know about running a business. So I sat there quietly and I just listened. I just listened and sponged everyone's problems, everything they complained about, staff issues, how to develop culture, marketing, winning new clients, online business, like anything and everything. And there was different accountants in the room as well. And I could hear like how they would react to things, how they were running their business. And all this time, like that I was doing the course, it was just absorbing all this information of what people's problems were. And the whole time I sat there going, I can fix that. I know how to fix that too. And I can actually fix that. And if there's something I couldn't fix, I go, I'm going to stew on this for a while and I'm going to go away and figure out how to fix that person's problem. And the whole time it was developing this idea of being able to help people have a better life. And that's kind of the driving force behind now, Future Advisory's kind of mission is, to help people have a better future. It's such an easy thing to roll off the tongue that we teach our entire team that, when you come to work, you exist and we exist to help people have a better future. It's so simple and it's so meaningful and there's, a client calls up and is having a rough day. It's, hey, let me take that pain away from you. So, I kind of call us more of a customer service business of how do we, take the pain point away. If the ATO has sent a letter that a client doesn't understand, hey, let us handle that for you. My tax bill is this. Oh, would you like to talk about how to make your tax bill a bit smaller? Would you want to do this and this? So, getting to do that, I've got a great life, but there's that little, thing in the back of the mind. There's always room for improvement and there's always striving for that next thing and that next thing. And, so...
You would quite literally astonish yourself. But then again, look, I'm going that off my experience and the experience of some people I know. Maybe you'd do a couple of years and go, I'm bored as batshit. This was terrible.
You know, I haven't come across someone who quit drinking. It says they regret it.
Yeah.
You know, Marty, who's on the Numbers Game podcast.
Yeah.
You know,
shout out to the Numbers Game podcast.
he was a comedian in his early 20s, and then he became a mortgage broker and exited a couple of businesses, and now he's part of Innovate with Nick, who's on the show. And, you know,
Innovate, the brokers.
Yeah.
With Renee Kiley.
Yeah, so former Renee. Yeah, Renee was part of that. And Julian Muldoon, who was Renee's business partner at Property Way.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, we digress. That'll be boring as anyone to people listening. Carry on, sir.
So they're Nick and Marty from Innovate are, you know, Future Advisory uses them for partnership stuff on the financial planning mortgage broking front. You know, had a great long relationship with them. Nick and I get along really well, but Marty adds this element of, you know, when you throw, you know, a 50-year-old bloke with white hair, you know, into the mix, but with a comedian background, he adds this maturity and depth, but he also hasn't drank for over 10 years, maybe a little bit more. And he throws that in that, you know, he's one of the happiest, healthiest friends. Like, he's just got this energy and, you know, zest for life. Not that I don't have a zest for life, but he doesn't. For 10 years, I can guarantee he hasn't missed drinking alcohol and waking up feeling like crap. We had a corporate box at the footy and Marty came along. And in my mind, I was kind of stupidly going, shit, well, this, you know, his ticket includes unlimited booze. Everybody else is tucking in, like having at least 20 drinks today, making value for money.
Yeah, you got to get our money's worth out of it.
And I'm going, shit, I hope Marty eats an extra scone and has an extra 5 sausage rolls, like, you know.
Put some party pies in your bag, Marty. Take them home.
Correct. I think he did, actually. Yeah, but, like, what kind of fucking mindset is that, that value? So, you know, as you said, I agree, and I know it's there in the background, and anyone that I've ever spoken to about it who did quit for an extended period of time has never said they regret it or they made a mistake. So
something that you were talking about, you're discussing being involved in a business group, and you know, as a business owner, I'm involved in some business groups as well. And deliberately, what I do is, 'cause I come into work, right, and everyone here works for me, so they're nice to me because I pay them to be nice to me.
Yeah, that helps.
But you know, you don't get questioned enough. You don't get challenged enough. I'm lucky I've got a business partner. We challenge each other a fair bit. But I go along to these groups, and same thing, mate. I go into a room and, you know, you think you're doing all right, and then I'm having a chat with a guy, and he's running through some numbers, and he turns over $1 billion with a B a year, and I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to be quiet now. What do you have to say? But so from a business owner's point of view, I find that stuff really important because that's where I go to get my juice and my ideas, and to really put myself in a room where I'm not clever, where like, as far, not that they'd ever think I'm an idiot, but I feel like an idiot in those rooms. I'm just like, shh. And, you know, it got me thinking about that, because there's a lot of that for entrepreneurs, because the entrepreneur journey is a very lonely one. It's a very lonely one because, you know, you stick your head out there and you put your kahunas on the line.
Big time.
And no one quite understands what you're going through. And there's often no one to bounce things off because no one really gets it. And as you were talking, I was thinking about those entrepreneur groups and, you know, how you go out and find them. And then I was thinking about it just for life. And I was thinking about our customers and how important it is to get that in life from somewhere. You know, where you're able to go for mentors, and, you know, a lot of our clients get it from church groups where there's community in there.
Community.
I think you were discussing it quite well from, you know, a finance background where someone can go to people like you and just go, oh my God, I'm stressed. How do I do things? Yep. And I'm actually going to ask you some questions about that in a sec. Or, like when it's first home buyers, like shameless plug for us, but you come to us and it's like, hey, you don't need to work this out. We've already got it. But you've got
decision paralysis as well, which is what I love about being able to go for your service. Like the amount of times Case and I have looked at a house and gone, oh, should we, wouldn't we? And then like not made the call. And then a couple of months later gone, fuck, we should have bought that house. But putting it in the hands of a professional saying, help me get a house.
That's a large part of what we do, is knowing the right times of when to push people and when to cuddle them.
Yeah.
And also, like, it's really hard to see the forest for the trees. What I was talking about with Melbourne before is where we're saying to people down there, like, I'm telling you, somewhere 3 to 18 months, property price is going to go up by a couple of $100,000. Now, my time and my numbers might be out a little bit, but I'm telling you, it has to happen. Because people get this thing where they think they can wait forever. And particularly with our clients in Queensland, we've seen it again and again, where waiting leads. I'm like a broken record on this podcast with this, but waiting only has 3 outcomes. So you will pay more money for a smaller block of land, which is further away than what you're looking at now.
Yep. Yeah. Makes sense.
So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to start plugging us, although, no regrets.
Ever.
What I wanted to get at was just thinking about our clients, which obviously all aspiring first home buyers. Generally the people we're dealing with are 30 to 45, professionals of some description. So, you think nurse, school teacher, tradie, maybe FIFO worker, NDIS support worker, something like that.
Yep.
IT worker, those sorts of people. Generally, our clients they've either just had kids or they're just about to have kids. Or they're a single professional, like an IT worker, for example. So that's pretty broad brushstrokes, but just so you can put an image of a human being in your head.
Bit of an avatar.
Yeah. So if you're sitting down talking to that person and they're like, right, I'm now in my early 30s and I've decided I need to get serious about money so I can get myself into a home. What sort of advice or tips could you give to that person to better manage themselves?
Well, as not a financial advisor, so all of this is general in nature.
Mate, yeah. So
I'm an accountant.
all of the discussions on this podcast. Sorry, I should have said this at the start. All of the discussions on this podcast are for entertainment purposes, so it's just information.
Totally get
None of it takes into account your personal situation, and it shouldn't be relied upon to make decisions. So before you do make any decisions, make sure you talk to a licensed professional. Did I get all of that right for you, mate?
Spot on. Thank you. Pew, pew. Done. No, but look, I like to always keep it simple, and it's getting people to understand their whole situation. Really kind of going back to basics and having the budget. Having the plan. I think a lot of people go through and get to a certain point where they've relied without the plan, without the budget. They've kind of just made it work and made it happen. But actually, like reverse engineering it and going, well, where do you want to be? That whole Stephen Covey 7 Habits. Begin with the end in mind. What are you trying to achieve? When do you want to get there? By what time? And if we reverse engineer it, can you actually do it? And what are the steps you need? Do you need more income? Do you need to spend less? What are the parameters that are going on? Have you had your superannuation looked at? Are you doing things over there that you should or shouldn't be doing? So it's the whole 360 approach of not just what's your income and expenses here, but what are your savings doing? Have you got a managed fund or superannuation? Your superannuation's one that most people until 30 or 40 or even 50, they don't even know or look at what's going on over there. But that's going to be one of your biggest nest eggs that you're going to be able to have if you're a working pay-as-you-go earner who all the superannuation's going in there. You might as well pay attention to it and make sure somebody's got that under management doing the right things for you, rather than potentially sitting in a fund that isn't managing it properly, isn't aligned with your values, and is charging you too many fees and paying for insurances that you don't even know that are in there, whether it's trauma, life, TPD, any of the insurances. Some of them may not even apply to your situation if you haven't had them looked at and checked. So there's all those kind of situations, but it's just really getting back to the educational basics, that, that 101 with somebody to understand where they're at and where they want to be, and are they putting the steps in place to get there? So most people don't do a budget. They don't have one. They don't set one out to go, I earn this much money, like your 100%, and then putting away 10% of the total earnings per week, per fortnight. Most people don't do that. Most people don't deliberately put aside a set amount of savings. And then it's also, once it's in that savings account, we've got so many clients, those exact avatars that we talk to and go, where's your savings sitting? Oh, it's in this account. You know, is it a high interest saver? Oh, I'm not too sure actually. Well, especially now that interest rates are going up, you've got 100 grand sitting there and it earned 1%, but there's a 6% saver over there. You could have had a bonus 5 grand for free. Obviously, ATO is going to take a slice out of it, but it's those little basic things that, you know, especially when you talk to business owners as well. I had a business owner that had $500,000 in the working capital account. And that's because that was his comfortable number. And I said, well, park 400K of that into your high interest saver, you're going to have an extra 24 grand at the end of the year. You know, you can move it in and out. It was a particular account. And he goes, 24 grand, how? I'm like, well, you're getting close to 5 or 6% on that high interest saver or whatever the numbers end up being. And he was like, fuck, I love free money. I'm like, yeah, like, why wouldn't you do it? He's like, and he went back and figured out how many years he hadn't done it and how much money he had. He's like, shit, Jace, I could have had an extra 6 figures in my wealth of my family and my company. I'm like, so it's all those little basic things that obviously at bigger numbers it makes a bigger impact, but people don't understand that some of those silly little spending habits over a long period of time with compounding and earnings make such a huge difference to what they have in their bank 10 years from now or 20 years from now. So it's those bringing it back to basics and actually showing them, because, you know, some people go, well, you know, what's $50 a week how's $50 a week going to change my life? Yeah, I'll show you. Compound interest, $50 a week into a managed fund with some shares, with some dividend reinvestment or whatever it is. Cool. That $50 a week that you said doesn't really make an impact. That portfolio is worth $200 and something thousand after X years. And they're like, whoa, $50 a week and I can have that much money in X years? It's like, yeah. And it's when you can open up that light bulb moment of going, man, okay, I can make some really small changes week to week to have a bigger impact down the track. And usually if they want to have kids or want to buy a home and you can tie some emotion to it to go, well, it's actually possible for you to get that dream home or that first home. Or, you know, when little Susie gets to, you know, 18 years old and she's going to go into university, you can have that money already aside to pay for that and give her a really big head start in life that maybe her school friends aren't going to get because they're going to have help debts and whatever else. And all of a sudden tying that emotion into whatever their personal situation is and setting them free to go and put some steps in place. And feels impactful for us. And again, partnering with the right people that get to do the financial advisory stuff as a job. Then they come back to their accountant at year end and go, oh, Jay, so, you know, check this out. I bought my first batch of shares, or, you know, I've got the managed fund now. And you can see the bit of a buzz and a pep in their step that
peacocking around your office.
You know, and again, I've got the joy or the benefit of having done this for, you know, about 10 years now, or over 10 years now. And fortunately, I've got clients that have been with me since day one, 10 years ago, that I can hands down say that because of conversations we had 10 years ago where, you know, some different habits and steps and routines were put in place for clients to understand their numbers better or their money more, or for business owners how to set aside their GST, pay as you go, pay their super when they need to and all the rest. 10 years on, the lives they have, the businesses they have, the properties, the holidays, the cars, whatever else, I get to sit back and go, I've played a pretty cool and important role in making a lot of these people have wicked lives that maybe another accountant down the road might have done it, but maybe they wouldn't have. And that for me is like, you know, it's a special thing to get to do. And, you know, you get to do it too with getting people to buy homes, which is the biggest thing they'll probably ever do in their lives. It's fucking awesome. Like it's really, really cool. But yeah, so look, long-winded answer to the question. It's just going back to basics, understand their money situation, but tie it to a bigger end purpose and end goal. Because if you keep it without the emotion, without, you know, humans are humans. You know, we're inherently wired to want to spend money. It's the way that, you know, everything around us gets us to behave. But tying that bigger purpose down the track so that when they're looking at that money or they've got that bit of plastic in their hand ready to tap, that thing pops back in their head as to, oh, you know, that impacts that decision that I made. I had that convo with Jace or with whoever, and maybe today's not the day, and that card goes away. And then in their mind, it stacks to that asset column of what was it going to make, what was the impact we were making by stacking the asset column rather than spending on something that they didn't need.
Yeah, and it's the whole from little things, big things grow. So
Big time.
if I look at my journey began at moving $100 a week from one account to another account, and that was the step that started everything else. But how could I have possibly known all of this other stuff was going to happen from just moving $100 from one account to
another. And that was
another?
why Barefoot Investor took off and got so much kind of accolades in the media, because it was making something like really basic and simple, going, set up these bank accounts, and every time you get paid, carve the percentages out and then sit back and don't touch it. And it was a really simple set of rules to try and follow and, to build in some of the other stuff. But, it's that if you make something way too complicated and you don't set kind of the goals and rules around it, people go, it's too hard. So it's more taking it back to basics. And that's why, again, Barefoot Investor did it really simple and basic. And, so trying to follow on for some of those methodologies or principles, was kind of, and Greg's he was a big Barefoot Investor man. So, I've lent on him and bounced ideas off him. And if anything, we're the yin and yang. He's the saver, and especially in business, I'm the spender who wants to go and do crazy things with the big ideas, and he's got to pull me back and just go, hey, settle it a bit.
So you would, to try and break that down just into a couple of steps, the first step is you would say to someone, have a dream. If we're talking first homes, which is what this podcast is about, let's have a dream in our mind about what that is and what we're going for. Then you would say, next, we need to understand your situation and understand really what's holding you back from that dream and put together a plan to get you there. And then to add some specific meat to bones, the thing that will be holding you back with getting a home is one of three things. So it'll either be servicing, which is income versus expenses, and we can either increase income or get rid of expenses. It will be deposit and costs, which is savings. So we've got a few options there. We could guarantor it. We could look for grants. Guarantor it, look for grants, save more money. And if we're saving more money, we would potentially have the option to look at something like the Super Saver scheme if it was a long-term plan. Or the third issue that they may need to work on is credit history. And credit history will generally be a low credit score on your credit report. Sorry, the low credit score is what's holding you back. What that will be caused by is the credit history, which will either be too many inquiries, missed payments or defaults. I might have missed something there. And you kind of need to work with a professional to sort that out. That's beyond the scope of this conversation. And then whatever it is of those three, work on it. But the way you keep the motivation to work on it is by holding the dream firmly in your mind.
And believing you can get there. Because I think a lot of people, they might start with the dream, then they go, oh, it's too hard, I can't get it, I can't attain it. Because they don't seek the help or they don't put the steps in place to actually make it a reality. And then that's when that dream becomes it all fizzles out and they go back to the old habits, or they're not trying, or they're not getting there because they feel it's out of reach or they can't do it. Like when interest rates went up, or when the property price that you wanted to buy goes up, all of a sudden it's too hard, it's not for me. I think a lot of young Aussies at the moment have that mindset that buying a property is out of reach now.
They have that mindset without any evidence. So this is what I would recommend to everyone. So we have a real problem in the country in that housing is getting unaffordable. I think it by all objective measures, it is more unaffordable than it's ever been. But then what I see happening is a lot of people are leveraging that real problem to their own ends. Like they're manipulating data, manipulating stories, particularly in politics, where they're telling what I would say are half-truths, which the flow-on effect they're hoping for is to get elected. But what I see in the marketplace is people are being bombarded with this message that goes, you can never buy a home. And you hear it from politicians, you hear it from your parents, you hear it from the media, and all of a sudden you just start believing it. You're like, I'm never going to be able to buy a home. And I don't blame anyone for thinking that. However, working in what I work in, it's not impossible to buy a home. In fact, this is too broad a brushstroke, but I would say it is possible for everyone to buy a home. However, it's not necessarily easy. And why I say it's possible but not necessarily easy is if you understand what's holding you back, you can come up with a way to fix it. And there's a lot of things where people go, that's impossible. So say servicing is your problem. You don't have enough income. Let's say you earn 70 grand and really what you need to be earning is 125 grand. I wouldn't blame someone for going, not possible. I can't get a pay rise that much. And I also can't work a second job because I've got kids. I'm just making something up. I agree with you. That's not possible. What is potentially possible is, do you have a best mate who's in a similar situation with you with an income and you guys could buy together? That's a solution.
Yep.
What about a sibling? Same thing. If your problem's income and you can't get more income, is there another way we can do it? And that's what I mean where I say, for everyone, it's possible, but, sort of inverted commas possible. But what you need to do may be outside what you were initially thinking about. But no one should believe this rhetoric that you can't buy a home, because it's a fucking lie. I'm not allowed to swear on here. It's a bloody lie.
I broke that rule a few times already, so apologies for that.
No. I'm kidding. No one should believe that, because it is simply not true.
Yeah.
You need to have a look at it and find out what it is you need to do, what's holding you back. And if you've got that, then it is possible for most people.
Yeah. And I have been out of the game of looking for a home for a long time. I just focusing on business. The business owns a commercial property. We want to look at another commercial property for our Narre Warren office. Kind of just makes sense that we're focusing on that. We have investments elsewhere in, different little tech stocks and stuff, all good. But then I know better than that. I know that having a main residence from a tax perspective, is going to be the best asset I can own. It's tax free. I can live there for a little bit and activate my main residence exemption, which is fantastic. And then if I choose that I don't want to live in that home anymore, I can go back to renting somewhere close to the city, live the lifestyle that I love to lead and live, and then rent that home out. And 5-6 years later, if I sell it, 6-year main residence exemption, whatever it's gone up in value, the maybe 100, 200, 300 that's going to happen in Melbourne over the next few years, according to Leigh, which I back that as well, it's tax-free. How bloody good, right? So I know I'm educated. I'd be stupid not to go and get this main residence in my name. So then it wasn't, again, to getting that mindset, snap back in, all the excuses are gone, COVID's gone, wedding's done, honeymoon's done, business is really stable, and we've worked really hard to get to a good spot over the last couple of years through a bit of a rebuild. And now it's, again, mindset. I'm in the zone, case in the zone, we're ready. Started looking, I'm like, shit. We're looking around Berwick, southeast suburbs, near the Narre Warren office, and quite a few homes on the market. I'm kind of looking at that going, oh, geez, I think some people have overreached here, whether it's they're going to the market because they want to sell at the uplift, or they're selling because interest rates aren't affordable for them. But I'm now looking at homes for 600, 700, 800,000, something for case of my income is going to be super easy for us to maintain, but also not. I don't want to spend the 1.1, 1.2 for the first step back into the market, but I'm looking at what I can get at that price going, shit, it's actually pretty good. These homes are really good value. But again, I haven't allowed myself to be in the market of looking and doing the research and getting back into that headspace. So again, I think for the people who have gone, oh, it's impossible, I can't do it, I can't afford it, maybe you've been looking in the wrong places, or you've been looking at the wrong budget, or you haven't even just put the steps and things in place to get the mindset right to go, I can do this, and to believe it. And now that I am looking, I'm like, well, shit, I'm actually getting really excited about it. I think, buying property should be everyone in Australia's right to be able to do it and afford it. Again, it's getting harder. It is. It's truly, I see my clients' incomes and I see the price of homes in the areas that we all want to live in. And then you always see those social media things of, back in the 80s, wage, income, this, and they do the percentage, and now they're showing it wage compared to property price. And it's a stupidly big difference now to what it was. But we know, and what we've talked about before, is property price is going to keep going up. And I think those three things you did, it was
servicing, savings, credit history.
And the other one that I liked, which is another 3 things, was if you delay, it's the land gets smaller.
So you will pay more money for a smaller block of land, which is further away.
I really like that. And that's, I'm looking at that going, Berwick and where that is, cool. But again, if I did this 5 years from now, maybe I'm in Tooradin or wherever further out down that corridor or whatever it looks like. But
mate, guaranteed. We operate in Berwick, and at the upper end of the price you're looking at, if you can find that now, get onto it because it'll be gone. I want to say it'll be gone by Christmas, but I don't know that for sure.
Well, we went to a couple of property inspections. I went to one last Wednesday or wherever the hell I was down there 2 Wednesdays ago, and went in, looked at it, whatever, and the guy's like, I got an offer on this today. He accidentally sent me the signed contract of the person that had made the offer. So he said, if you put your offer in, blah, blah, it's under this, that, whatever. But, and I saw it, I was like, I'm not going to offer that for that property, and good luck to the people that bought it. Like, it was a great little property, but it already had the reno done. So there wasn't an uplift opportunity of what we were looking for. Casey's stepdad's a builder. So and he's semi-retired, and we're kind of going, it'd be really cool if the place we got, rip the carpets out, put some floorboards in, do a new kitchen, do those little kind of cosmetic maintenance-y things. And
Amigo, please do this, and then we will do another podcast post this, and I want to get your feedback then. I literally had someone, so you're not the first person to have this idea, and I have heard so many disaster stories, the biggest one of which is you live in a construction site for a year, but having the in-laws doing it, I would love to do a before and after. Yeah. Like, now where you're all smiles, it'd be great, we'll do this, and then I'll get you afterwards. I'm like, we almost got a divorce, we had to go to marriage counselling.
No, I've seen the house Steve-O built. He built a beautiful house down on Raymond Island. So, the problem is going to actually be dragging him off Raymond Island to come down to Berwick for a couple of weeks, couple of months, whatever it takes. But yes, the part 1 and part 2 of this should be a good series. We'll see if I'm still married. So for now, all good. But no, it's look, and that's given, again, like practicing what I preach, having now that end goal or that bigger goal of what we're working towards. Now, Case and I, our conversations are more geared around, well, we won't actually book that right now, and we won't do that because we'll put some extra money aside there for that plan that we've got. And having that plan in place with that end goal becomes something that's really easy to tack onto and attach some emotion and some clear decisions to, rather than the frivolous, maybe it is booking another overseas trip or whatever people's, poison is, where we've got excited for that goal that we've set as to buying that main residence in whatever X time we've set, and it becomes easy to kind of make those decisions towards that plan.
The other thing that you brought up in all of that was, you didn't say it in these words, but almost what I took from it was it almost went into the too hard basket while you're focusing on all of these other things. Yep. And I think that happens for a lot of people, particularly if you've got kids, where you've got so much going on.
Yeah.
And then when you're talking about property, for most people, it's the biggest purchase they'll ever make in their life. But they have zero idea how to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, who do you ask? Well, I asked my parents because they bought a house. But these guys parents have done like maybe 2 real estate transactions spaced out by 30 years. So they kind of have no idea what they're doing. Then you've got the media going, it's impossible. And I don't blame people for just sticking their hands up in the air and going, it's too hard. But then to circle back again, the longer you put it in the too hard basket, it is more money, smaller block, further away. Yep. So there's a very real time pressure on you to get it done.
Yep.
Anyway, look, mate, congratulations. You have made it to the longest podcast that we've ever done. I actually feel like I could go for another hour, but I'm sure you are sick of my beautiful face. So
we've got part 2 coming when the house is finished, so that'll be fun.
Famous last words. If people want to find you, Where can they find you?
futureadvisory.com.au or get on the podcast, the Numbers Game podcast, if you want to hear more of this voice that you've just put up with for a couple of hours. That's coming up on 200 episodes, very much geared around business advice, accounting, just general stuff as well. We kind of have business segments and then individual segments for people that are looking to improve their personal finance situation. But yeah, futureadvisory.com.au from a tax and accounting point of view, service clients Australia-wide. Predominantly, if you're a business owner, you should be using Xero. Xero's our bread and butter. LinkedIn if you want to connect, all the usual places. But
where did they find you on LinkedIn?
At Future Advisory
Future
or
Advisory
at
as well.
Jason Robinson CPA.
Robinson. Okay. Cool.
Awesome.
Mate,
Thanks,
I really appreciate you taking time out. Congratulations again on the marathon. Good luck with the Reno, you crazy bastard. And let's talk again when you've done a 3:30 and
Done, mate. Thanks for having me.